Imagine waking up one day and receiving a message, an unshakable truth that no one can deny. A message that tells you, without any ambiguity, the exact day and time you will die. What would you do? How would you feel? More importantly, how would the world change if everyone had this same knowledge? Today, we're diving deep into the psychological, social, and legal implications of a world where everyone knows when they will die. Strap in, it's going to get existential. Let's start at the individual level. Knowing your death date would undoubtedly cause a seismic shift in how people live their lives. For some, the reaction might be liberating. After all, if you know exactly how much time you have left, you might prioritize living life to the fullest, checking off every item on your bucket list, or finally chasing that lifelong dream. But for others, this knowledge could be paralyzing. Would you be able to enjoy a lazy Sunday morning if you knew you only had 3 more of them left? The awareness of a definitive end date could make every moment bittersweet, knowing each one is a step closer to the final day. Psychologists have long studied the effect of mortality awareness on behavior known as terror management theory. It suggests that when confronted with their own mortality, people often cling to cultural beliefs and personal values more strongly to find meaning. So if everyone knew their exact death date, we might see more people doubling down on what matters to them, whether it's family, religion, or even fame and material success. Now let's expand to relationships and social dynamics. Friendships, romantic partnerships, and even workplace interactions could change dramatically. Imagine knowing your partner will die before you, or vice versa. Would you still commit to a long-term relationship if you knew it would only last a few years? Or would people start forming death date contracts, pledging to be together only until one's date approaches? On a societal level, the culture around life milestones might shift. Events like birthdays or anniversaries could feel hollow if everyone's focused on their death day. Instead of celebrating another year lived, we'd be counting down the years left. Graduations, weddings, and retirements might lose significance, replaced by lasts. The last vacation, the last family reunion, the last kiss. It's also possible that a sort of death discrimination could arise. If employers, insurers, or even friends knew when someone was going to die, would they treat that person differently? Imagine trying to get a job when you have only 3 years left on your life. How would that affect your chances? And what about life insurance policies? Would premiums skyrocket as soon as someone entered their final years? If the exact date of death were known, there would be countless legal and economic ramifications. Lawmakers would face unprecedented ethical dilemmas. Should the government allow terminally ill individuals, or those whose date is fast approaching, to access euthanasia or assisted departure services? On one hand, it could be considered an act of compassion, allowing people to choose a peaceful exit on their terms. On the other hand, it could create pressure for those nearing their date to end their lives early to avoid being a burden. What about financial planning? Would retirement funds become obsolete if everyone knew exactly how long they needed to save for? The entire life insurance industry would have to restructure. Instead of insuring against an unknown death, policies might instead be tied to other risks, like accident coverage. And consider criminal law. What if someone committed a crime knowing they were going to die soon? Would the criminal justice system still pursue punishment for those whose remaining time is short? Or would death date leniency come into play where punishments are reduced or waived based on proximity to the end? The impact would also extend to cultural and philosophical realms. Our concept of time, already a social construct, would undergo a drastic transformation. Time would no longer be this vague, stretching continuum. It would have a precise endpoint for every person. Would this newfound precision bring a sense of urgency to everything we do? Or would it create a nihilistic attitude where people decide that life's efforts are pointless because they already know their time is limited? Religions around the world would face a crisis of faith. Most spiritual belief systems are built around the uncertainty of life and death, offering comfort and guidance in the face of the unknown. But if death becomes a scheduled appointment, would we still seek answers from faith? Some might double down on their beliefs, hoping for an afterlife or reincarnation. Others might abandon religion entirely, seeing it as irrelevant if fate has already been sealed. Art, music, and literature would likely take on darker or more reflective tones. Themes of time, mortality, and legacy would become more central, with creators using their own death dates as inspiration. We might see an increase in memoirs, documentaries, and personal projects aimed at leaving a lasting mark, because every artist, musician, and writer would know exactly how long they have to complete their magnum opus. But let's not overlook the potential benefits. Some argue that awareness of death can inspire a more meaningful life. If you knew you had only 10 years left, you might prioritize quality over quantity. This kind of clarity could help people focus on what really matters, reducing procrastination, fostering mindfulness, and eliminating trivial worries. In a world where everyone knows their death date, social hierarchies might change too. The pursuit of wealth and power could diminish if people stop trying to outlive others in terms of success. We might see a shift toward experiences and memories over material possessions. There could even be an increase in altruistic behavior. If you know you only have a few years left, giving to others or working toward a greater good might feel more important. People may feel compelled to leave the world better than they found it. Of course, there would also be darker consequences. Suicide rates might increase as some people, faced with the knowledge of a near-term death, could feel hopeless or see little value in continuing. A sense of despair might permeate society, particularly among those with closer dates. Crime could take a disturbing turn, with so-called death date criminals emerging. People who commit heinous acts knowing they won't live long enough to face significant punishment. Fear and distrust could grow as people start to associate danger with those whose time is almost up. Social services might collapse under the weight of death date panic, with people rushing to cross items off their bucket lists or engage in reckless behavior. Healthcare systems would face tough decisions about allocating resources, particularly to those who are close to their end date. Ultimately, the question of what would happen if everyone knew their exact death date is a thought experiment that forces us to confront our fears, values, and priorities. It challenges the very foundation of how we perceive time and life itself. Would we find ourselves liberated, terrified, or resigned? Would society crumble under the weight of this knowledge, or could it come together in unprecedented ways? Knowing when we'll die would strip away the illusion of limitless time, revealing the fragile, fleeting nature of existence. But perhaps that's exactly the kind of clarity humanity needs to fully embrace what it means to be alive. Thanks for taking this journey. If this video got you thinking about how you'd live if you knew your death date, share your thoughts in the comments below. How would you change your lifestyle? Would you keep it to yourself or tell others? Let's start a conversation. And if you enjoyed this dive into the philosophical what-ifs, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more content like this. Stay curious and remember, live every day like it's your last, because someday it will be.